By mid-2015, Islamic State forces had consolidated their control over much of northeastern Syria and western Iraq. Pressure continued to mount on many frontiers across Iraq and Syria, where forces backed by the US coalition battled Islamic State fighters into stalemate. Under constant air attack, the lightning-quick mechanized defensives of 2014 had become untenable. After its bloody defeat in the town of Kobani, the Islamic State sought a military victory to reinvigorate its supporters. In response to the situation, they turned toward their only enemy that lacked their support from the US coalition, the Assad regime. Though sparsely populated, the vast Homs Desert contained several large oil and gas fields, revenue sources that the Assad regime would be hard-pressed to lose control of. The city of Palmyra was a tempting target, as its proximity to these strategic resources would provide a much-needed boost to the strained coffers of the Islamic State. Geographically, control of the eastern Homs Desert would threaten the main highway running from Damascus to Aleppo. Control of that key supply route would give Islamic State fighters several options. They would be able to maneuver freely north toward Homs, south toward Damascus, or east into northern Lebanon, where they had already established a foothold with some 1,500 fighters in the Qalamun Mountains. After their defeat against the Islamic State in eastern Syria, several large rebel groups retreated west towards positions near Aleppo and Idlib. With elements of these weakened formations, moderate rebels and Al-Qaeda-linked fighters created a new coalition called the Army of Conquest. With a force of approximately 12,000, they launched a large-scale offensive against government forces in central Idlib, and within a few weeks, the rebels had overrun the city, pushing government troops out of several sizable towns to the south, including the city of Jisr al-Shahur. To contain this breakthrough, many government troops were redeployed from the eastern Homs Desert, leaving the region's defenses severely weakened. On the morning of May the 13th, a force of some 2,000 Islamic State fighters launched a two-pronged offensive toward the city of Palmyra, catching government troops completely by surprise. At dawn, the battle commenced with an assault on the small oasis town of Al-Sukna. Hundreds of Islamic State fighters surged forward, overrunning the undermanned checkpoints and pushing into the town itself. Government troops withdrew into the police station and Ba'ath Party headquarters and continued fighting for several hours. By the afternoon, casualties were mounting, and the situation turned dire as no reinforcements had arrived. Surviving government troops conducted a hasty withdrawal and made for the relative safety of Tadmur. Islamic State fighters pursued them, using captured Grad missiles to destroy strongpoints and seize control of the remaining positions east of the city. To the north, Islamic State fighters overran a munitions warehouse, seizing large quantities of ammunition and even several tanks. Following this advance, they captured the suburb of Amiriyah, just 2 kilometers from the city. With the city encircled from the north and east entrances, Islamic State fighters industrially set to work bombing the city's military airport with Grad missiles. And to the west, even carried out an assault on the heavily fortified T4 airbase, which was easily repulsed. Syrian army forces then counterattacked, restoring the city's perimeter and recapturing Amiriyah. A large force of government troops then struck out toward Al-Sukna, making progress in the southwest before meeting heavy resistance in the town's outskirts and withdrawing several kilometers westward. The following day, Islamic State fighters breached the eastern gate of the city, but were soon driven back in the face of stubborn resistance. The siege of the military airport continued, with sporadic missile bombardments and probing attacks. However, these incursions failed to achieve any progress. On May the 15th, Syrian army reinforcements arrived, attempting to stabilize the situation. Islamic State fighters pulled back to about 2 kilometers from the city and, digging in, managed to hold back the government's advance. In the northern sector, Amiriyah was again lost but then regained with the assistance of heavy airstrikes. With the help of the Special Forces unit Suqur al-Sahra, government troops managed to again reach the outskirts of al-Sukna, but made little progress in entering the town. On May the 16th, Islamic State fighters advanced into Palmyra's ruins and captured the ancient citadel of Fakhr ad-Din al-Ma'ani, while to the north, a massive attack broke through government defences and captured the northern half of Palmyra. On the morning of May the 19th, government troops, backed up by several tanks, led a dawn assault against the suburb of Emiriya, and recapturing it, discovered large stockpiles of tactical vests, thermal missiles, and vast quantities of ammunition. Over the course of the next 2 days, government troops regrouped and counterattacked, retaking full control of the city and the ancient ruins. Fighting continued to rage on, with Islamic State fighters advancing and taking several important locations in the northeast sector. On May the 20th, 800 fresh fighters arrived from Raqqa and reinforced the stalling offensive. With these fresh units, Islamic State forces launched a massive assault to the north of the city, advancing through Emiriya and into Palmyra itself. After several hours of hard fighting, government troops withdrew from the city entirely and carried out a fighting withdrawal along the main road leading west to Homs, until they finally established a new defensive line 4 kilometers from the city. As Palmyra fell, hundreds of precious artifacts were recovered from the museum and loaded into trucks fleeing west, as many feared that the Islamic State would destroy the sacred artifacts. Over the preceding months, Islamic State fighters pushed deeper into central Homs, threatening the vital highway linking government territory from Damascus to Aleppo. However, the dramatic fall of Palmyra would be a turning point for the Syrian government. The clear weakness of the Syrian army brought into the fray its oldest and most powerful ally, the Russian Federation. With the entry of Russian bombers, the soldiers of the Islamic State found themselves vulnerable to targeted air attacks on all frontiers. With their momentum stalling, the forces of the Islamic State would soon be on the defensive, marking late 2015 as the apex of their expansion and the beginning of the end.